Hello everyone. In this video we will be discussing the producer's equilibrium, previous year questions based on the producer's equilibrium from 2012 to 2019. So the first question is from 2012 June paper 2. The question is an assertion reason type. The assertion is the K by L ratio will adjust through time in direction of the equilibrium ratio, and the reason given is that because the technical coefficient of production are variable. It means that the K by L ratio will change accordingly to the accordingly to the changes in the accordingly to change to reach the equilibrium point, and the reason given is that because the technical coefficient of production are variable. So the answer to this question is option B, that is the assertion, both assertion and reason are correct, and R is the correct explanation of A. So that is the answer for this question. The next question is from 2012 June paper 3. The question is the producer will substitute capital for labor till he reaches that point of isequent at which option A, the price of the good he produces equals wage rate. Option B, marginal rate of technical substitution equals interest rate. Option C, marginal rate of technical substitution equals the marginal revenue, and option D is marginal rate of technical substitution equals the ratio of marginal productivity of labor and capital. So this question in turn asks about the condition of a producer's equilibrium. So directly we can find the answer to this question, and the answer is option D, that is the marginal rate of technical substitution equals the ratio of marginal productivity and labor and capital. So therefore the answer to this question is D. So if you recall the conditions for which the producer's equilibrium was was discussed, we can easily identify the answer for this question. And why option A, B and C are not answers to the question is that the price of the good he produces equals the wage rate. So that is not a condition, necessarily a condition for producer's equilibrium. And B, marginal rate of technical substitution equals the interest rate. So the marginal rate of technical substitution is the slope of the isequent curve. It has to be equal to the ratio of the prices of both the factors of production. That was the exact equilibrium condition, and not alone the interest rate. Interest rate means which is the price of the capital alone. Now option C is marginal rate of technical substitution equals the marginal revenue. Again we know that the condition for producers, the first order condition for producers equilibrium is that the marginal rate of technical substitution or the slope of the isequent curve to be equal to the slope of the isocost line. So the isocost line is again the budget line or price line, which again shows the ratio of price of both the factors of production. So therefore there is only one answer to this question, and that is option D, the marginal rate of technical substitution MRT is being equal to the ratio of marginal productivity of labor and capital. Now the question for June 2012 June 2 is June paper 3 is given the following production function, match the items in list 1 and list 2. So this is a Cobb-Douglas production function which is given as y is equal to a into L raised to beta into k raised to alpha into k raised to alpha, and alpha and beta being greater than 0. So the list 1 and list 2 is the are given different the returns of scales are given, different types of returns of scale, and also the output elasticity is given. We have to match it respectively to the ones given in list 2. So the first one is decreasing returns to scale. So for the decreasing returns to scale to happen, we know that the condition is that the output elasticities of the sum of the output elasticities of both capital and labor should be less than 1. So decreasing returns to scale happens in the case when alpha plus beta is less than 1. That is, it can be matched with option 3. That is option 3 from list 2. That is, the sum of alpha and beta is less than 1. Now increasing returns to scale. So for increasing returns to happen, the sum of the output elasticities of labor and capital, that is alpha and beta, has to be greater than 1. So that means it can be matched with option 1 in list 2, that is alpha plus beta is greater than 1. Now the third option in list 1 is output elasticity with respect to L. So the output elasticity with respect to labor, we can identify it directly from the equation itself, that is beta. So the beta is the parameter or the output elasticity that is related with labor. So we can match option 3 with option 4, that is beta. Now the option 4 from list 1 is output elasticity with respect to K. With respect to K again, just as we have found out for L, the same thing for the same logic can be applied here. That means K can be identified with alpha. So we can match output elasticity with respect to K with option 2, that is alpha. So the answer for this question, which was officially given, was option A. But there is an issue with the options, that is with the codes that are given here. So option A means 1 is matched with 3, that is true. Again 2 is matched with 1. 2 means increasing returns to scale corresponds to the sum of output elasticity is greater than 1, and option 3 is matched with option 2. So this should have been the other way. That means option 2 should have been matched with option 4, and 4 with 4 should have been matched with 2. So there is an issue with this quotes, but the right answer is just as the way we discussed. It is that means decreasing, even though the quotes answer is given as A, the answer for this, exact answer for this question is decreasing returns to scale can be matched with option 3, that is alpha plus beta is less than 1. Now increasing returns to scale is greater than can be shown through alpha plus beta being greater than 1, that is 1. Option 1. Now output elasticity with respect to L, with respect to labor is beta, that is option 4, and output elasticity with respect to K is alpha. So this can be matched with option 2. So that is the answer that we have to be careful about. Now the question is from 2012 December paper 2. The question is, for downward movement along the isoquant, marginal rate of technical substitution of labor per unit of capital, that means MRTS LK, is given by option A minus dk by dl, option B dk by dl, option C is dl by dk, and option D is minus dl by dk. Again this is a very direct question based on the concept of MRTS, marginal rate of technical substitution. So the answer for this question is option A, that is minus dk by dl, the minus being the showing the negative slope of isoquant curve. So minus dk by dl gives us the marginal rate of technical substitution of labor for capital, MRTS LK. Answer is option A, that is minus dk by dl. The next question would be from 2012 December paper 3. The question is, which of the following conditions specify the least cost output combination? Again the least cost output combination is also the optimal combination, or the equilibrium, producer's equilibrium combination. So we have to keep that in mind. The options given are option A, PL by PK is equal to MRTS, option B is PL by PK is equal to MPL, marginal productivity of labor divided by marginal productivity of capital, MPK, and option C is MPK divided by MPL, again is equal to DL by DK, and option D is all of the above. So the answer for this question is we have to first of all recall what are the equilibrium conditions given. So we had discussed about in different number of using different concepts with respect to the price of labor and price of both labor and capital with respect to marginal productivities of the respective factors of production and all. We could rewrite, we rewrote all those equilibrium conditions in different way. So we have to recall all those conditions and check if all of these options match with the ones that we had already discussed. So the first option is PL by PK being equal to MRTS, that means the marginal rate of technical substitution, which is the slope of the isoquant curve, being equal to the ratio of the price of the two factors of production. That was the slope of the isocost line. So the isocost line and the isoquant line having the same slope, or they both are tangent to each other at that particular point. So option A is definitely an answer, or definitely a condition for this least cost combination or optimal or equilibrium output level. So option A, we are sure of that. Now moving on to option B, PL by PK is equal to marginal productivity of labor divided by marginal productivity of capital. Again that is also an important condition. So while discussing optimal conditions, we could write marginal rate of technical substitution can also be written as generally can be written in terms of the marginal productivities of both labor and capital also. So again, marginal rate of technical substitution can being equal to the price of the price ratio of the price of both factors of production is also another important condition that we can derive from the basic equilibrium condition. So PL by PK being equal to the marginal productivities of labor and capital is also an important conclusion or is an important answer for this question. So option B again is a right option. And now option C is MPK by MPL, the marginal productivity of capital divided by the marginal productivity of labor being equal to the ratio of labor and change in labor to change in capital is also an answer for this, also an equilibrium condition that can be written in both ways with respect to, it can be written in both ways, that means which can be written with respect to MRTS directly and also with respect to the equilibrium, respect to their marginal productivities. So we can easily identify that whether it is between labor for capital or for capital for labor, in both ways all the three conditions given here are exact equilibrium conditions that can be derived on the basis of the basic equilibrium condition that the marginal rate of technical substitution, that is the slope of the isochrone curve, should be equal to the slope of the isocost line. So all of these conditions are similar in nature and also point to the least cost combination of output. So the answer for this question is D, option D, all of the above. That means all of the above given conditions point out to the least cost combination of output. So the answer is option D, all of the above. The next question is from 2013 June paper 3. The question is, an economic region of production consists of the positively sloped portions of all isoquants, option B, the negatively sloped portions of all isoquants, option C, the middle of all isoquants, and option D, the highest points of all the isoquants curve. So we should recall what an economic region is. So an economic region is a region where the producer is actually willing to undertake his production activity. That means that is a point where the isochrone curve is convex to the origin. So that was an important conclusion or important condition for a producer to achieve equilibrium position, and that is a position where he can have a positive marginal product and an optimal output. That is a region where economic region is a region where the producer can actually attain an optimal level of output, or he can actually use the least cost combination of factors to produce that particular output level. So we should remember that for any producer to undertake a production activity, the isochrone curve that he chooses should always be convex to the origin. So therefore the convexity can be easily identified from each of these options. That means the answer for this question would be the option B, the negatively sloped portions of all isoquants. That is, answer B is the answer for this question, that is, in the negatively sloped portions of all isoquants. So which again corresponds to the fact that an isochrone curve has to be convex to the origin, or there has to be a diminishing marginal rate of technical substitution that has to take place for a producer to undertake his production activity, or for him to fall into that economic region of production where he can choose the least cost combination of output. So answer for this economic region, the economic region consists of all the negatively sloped portions, or where the MRTS is diminishing, or where the isochrone curve is convex to the origin. The negatively sloped portions of all isoquants is the answer for this question. Now 2013 June paper 3, the question is elasticity of substitution. So what is an elasticity of substitution? Again we have discussed, this is a direct question, we have discussed based on the concept of elasticity of substitution. We have discussed this in the previous videos. The option is option A, the substitution of cheaper inputs for the dearer inputs. Option B, the rate at which the inputs, that means the labor and capital, are substituted. And option C, a measure of the responsiveness of input ratio to the change in the input price ratio. Again D is a measure of responsiveness of input prices to the substitution of the cheaper inputs. So while reading all these options, we have to be very careful and we have to stick to the idea basically about what an elasticity of substitution is. It mainly considers about substitution of the factors of production, but there is an influence. Elasticity of substitution has an influence of price of each factors of outputs over it. So it is also determined based on the prices of the inputs also. So we have to consider these two concepts in our mind, and then we have to find the answer for this question. But the answer for this question of elasticity of substitution is option C. That is a measure of responsiveness of input ratio to the changes in the input price ratio. So that exactly again is, as I have already said, it corresponds to what exactly an elasticity of substitution is. So it is based upon the substitution that a producer is willing to take for changes that happen in that can take place in the input price ratio. That means the substitution that might take place based on the changes in the prices of the factors of input can lead to this, take us to the concept of elasticity of substitution. So therefore this is an exact definition for what elasticity of substitution is. That means it measures the responsiveness of input ratio. That means the change in the use of factors of production, or the level of substitution of the factors of production based on the change in the input price ratio. That means based on the prices, based on the changes in the prices of the factors of production. And why A, B and D are not answers is that the first one is the substitution of cheaper inputs for the dearer inputs. Even though that happens in case, so that is a part of elasticity of substitution, but exactly elasticity of substitution measures what this change can happen to the change, can lead to what change this can bring to the output level. So A is actually partial only for what elasticity of substitution means, and B, the rate at which inputs are substituted. So that can be termed as what is marginal rate of technical substitution. Again, MRTS is what is the rate, MRTS is again a change in the rate of substitution between change in the substitute, or the change in the use of both the commodities is what MRTS is about. So that can correspond to option B, can correspond to MRTS, and option D can option D is a measure of the responsiveness of input prices and the substitution of cheaper inputs. No, it is not the responsiveness of input prices, but it is the responsiveness of how a producer is willing to change his input, change his factors of production based on the input prices. So there is only one exact answer to this question, that is option C. Now 2014 December paper 2, the question is law of diminishing returns begins to operate when? So option A is total product begins to rise, option B is total product begins to fall, option C is marginal product begins to rise, and option D is marginal product begins to fall. So law of diminishing returns tells us about the changes that can take place in total product due to the changes in the marginal product. So again, law of diminishing returns states that when marginal product becomes negative, the total product curve also starts to diminish, or it slopes, the total product curve slopes downwards. So the basic essence of this question is what happens, what leads to the changes in the changes in total product. So the answer for this question is option D, marginal product begins to fall. So this is also a direct question. So directly based on the concept we can answer this question, that is marginal product begins to fall. So it is a we should not confuse it with the idea that total product begins to fall. That is also true, but what makes total product fall is the fall in the marginal product. That means when it becomes negative, total product begins to fall. So the answer is option D. Now this is a question from 2017 January paper 3. In the adjoining diagram, which of the following line represents the law of returns? The option 1 is OA, 2 is BC, 3 is DE, and option 4 is both 2 and 3. Now we have to check carefully about what exactly all of these curves correspond to. Now OA is a scale line, a scale line or some scale line which measures both labor and capital. So law of returns specifically says us about what changes what changes or what are the responsiveness of the changes in the factors of production or respective factors of production to the output. That is what law of returns says us. So BC is a curve that shows is a point where capital is kept constant and labor is changing. That means labor is a variable factor. So so for sure we can say that BC shows BC can be used to represent law of return. Again DE, the curve DE shows when labor is held constant and when capital changes, what will be the changes in the output. So from this we can easily identify that B, C and DE both curves represent law of returns. That means the respective changes that can take place in the output from changing the factors of production. So that is what law of returns is about. So we can easily identify the answer. The answer for this question is B, C and DE both 2 and 3. The answer is option 4. That is option 4 means both 2 and 3, that is B, C and DE are answers to this question. Those are the curves which represents the those are the lines which represents the laws of return. Now 2018 December paper 2, the question is again similar to the question that we had already discussed. The similar question we have already discussed, that means which an economic region of production consists of the highest points of all isoquants, the negatively sloped portions of all isoquants, the positively sloped portions of all isoquants, the middle of isoquants. So this is again a direct question. The answer for this question would be option 2. The negatively sloped portions of isoquants or the convex shaped isoquants or diminishing marginal rate of technical substitution gives us the economic region of production. Now this is a question from 2019 June paper 2. The question is, which of the following statements are true regarding the Cobb-Douglas production function? The questions are, I'm sure the Cobb-Douglas production function has been explained through another video, so kindly check those properties, check the properties that has been discussed in that. The options are, it is a long period production function, it is a short period production function, it is based on increasing returns to scale, and option D, the last option, is output elasticities with respective factors are constant. So we have to select the correct option from these. So we can directly, since this is again a direct question based on the properties of Cobb-Douglas production function, we can find that the answer for this question is option B, that is A and D. It is a long period production function and the output elasticities with respect to the factors of production are held constant. Option A and D are answers to this question. That means option B. The answer for this question is answer B. A and D, that is, it is a long period production function and that the output elasticities with respect to factors of production are held constant. Now, this is a question from 2019 December. This is again an assertion reason type question. The assertion is CES production function covers large class of production function. The reason is CES production function has a property of constancy of elasticity of factors of production. So this is also a similar production function, almost similar to the Cobb-Douglas production function, though we can see some of the properties in the following slides. So we have to find which are the answers, which answers are true. If the statement and the assertion are true, the options given are both assertion and reason are true and R is the correct explanation of A. Both A and R are true and R is not the correct explanation of A, and 3 is A is true but R is false, and 4 is A is false but R is true. So the answer for this question would be answer 1, that is both assertion and reason are true and R exactly explains the assertion that is given here. So we'll check why. Again, the equation that has been given at first is a example of CES production function. Q is equal to A into C raised to minus theta plus 1 minus alpha L raised to minus theta whole raised to minus 1 by theta is a CES production function. And now where Q is the total output, C is the capital and L is the labor, or the two factors of production, and A is the efficiency parameter. We have to remember that what each variables mean. A is the efficiency parameter indicating the state of technology, and organizational aspects of production indicating the state of technology. That means what are the how much level of technology is present at the particular time period, and organizational aspect of production. The other factors, the factors other than capital and labor that can affect quantity of output is shown through A, and we can see that it shows that with technological or organizational changes, the efficiency parameter leads to a shift in the production function. So the factors that directly affect the output is given as capital and labor, but the importance of A, the efficiency parameters here in the sense that any changes that can take place in this efficiency parameter can lead to a shift in the production function. Again, alpha is the distribution parameter or the capital intensity factor coefficient that is concerned with the relative factor shares in the total output. Alpha is again the distribution parameter with related to the capital, and theta is a substitution parameter which determines the elasticity of substitution. So now alpha is a, we have to remember what each name corresponds to. Alpha shows the distribution parameter or the capital intensity factor coefficient. And theta shows the substitution parameter, and which is based on, and which determines the value of theta determines the elasticity of substitution in this particular production function. And another important assumption or property of the CES production function is the constancy of the elasticity of substitution. The elasticity of substitution is constant here, even though it is not equal to 1, exactly equal to 1, the elasticity of substitution is constant in case of a CES production function. And that is why we had an answer here that both A and R, that means assertion and reason are true, and that because of this constancy of elasticity of factors of production, and since it is an important feature of CES production function, we can say that this is both assertion and reason are true in this sense. So we have to remember exactly what these alpha and theta, these two parameters determine, and we have to keep in mind the values, the names of each of these, names that correspond to each of these parameters. Now this will be the last question that has been asked from this part. The question is from 2019 December. Choose the correct option for which the allocation of inputs is technically efficient. That means the first one is output of one good cannot be decreased with increasing output of another good. Now option B is consumption of one good cannot be increased without decreasing the consumption of another good. And option C is consumer attains maximum satisfaction. So the question is with regard to the allocation of input. So the technically efficient allocation of inputs. So this can be the optimal level of output, or this can be the least cost combination of factors which can lead to the optimal level of output or the equilibrium level of output. So we have to choose the correct options. That means A only, both A and C, and both B and C. So we can see that since this is a case of producer's equilibrium that is being asked here, we can directly find the answer as option. The answer for this question would be A. That means statement A, output of one good cannot be decreased without increasing the output of the other good. That means the answer for this question is option 2, that is A alone, that means A only. And that why? Because we know that if we have to increase the production of one output, then we have to decrease the production of that another output, and that is the position where an equilibrium occurs, or that is the level at which the producer is willing to stop his production level. So that is the optimum level of output that that the producer is willing to produce. So therefore the answer for this question would be option A, output of one good cannot be decreased without increasing the output of another good. So with this we are concluding the discussion on previous year questions based on producer's equilibrium. Kindly recall all the videos, recall and refresh all the videos that we had discussed about producer's equilibrium, and kindly go for your queries. Thank you.